Welcome to the Dingus Den for a special episode of the Comic Den, essentially. Although we are here for Star Wars Podcast Day to talk about a unique Star Wars comic. So without further ado, let's just get into it.
Welcome to the Dingus Den.
Awesome. All right. Welcome to the Dingus Den, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this special occasion. Also, thank you, Ian, normal co-host of Before the Cape, now for another comic review. Been a while since we've actually talked about a comic like together in a video. So
and about Star Wars.
And about Star Wars. This is also true because we actually met each other via Star Wars Book Club, Red 5 Reading, who's also having a special that you can find later today for Star Wars Podcast Day. So, but yeah, Star Wars is important to us. It also kind of fitting that like I asked you to join me for this since, like I said, we met each other over Star Wars. Specifically for us, it was both of our first time, right? Reading the Heir to the Empire trilogy.
Yeah, and there's actually a link to that book in this comic, at least that I saw.
Oh, see, that I didn't see. So I'm looking forward to whatever all this is gonna to be. That, you know, this is an interesting comic to delve into. But first, before we do delve into this comic, Star Wars Visionaries, that is, which we'll get into all of it. I'm excited to get into this as this is just a unique read. But Star Wars Podcast Day, this is the sixth one, which there's a special logo for it right there, where this is a big event that brings together. Last year, there's over 100 shows that joined for this event. And so this is just a big unofficial event to bring together Star Wars fan audio community. And so, you know, Star Wars is such a huge beloved franchise that, you know, people have so many podcasts, you know, specifically talking about Star Wars, but then lots of other podcasts that do just talk about Star Wars in general a lot as well. And so anyway, this is you can think of it as like their own little version of May the 4th. You know, their own little day for or our own little day for, you know, Star Wars podcasting. So,
May
but
the
why
podcast be with you?
May the podcast be with you, exactly. So, why is it though on February 7th? That is because that is the day when Jedi Talk, the very first Star Wars podcast, premiered all the way back in 1999. And so, yeah, so shout out to Jedi Talk, which still going, it looks like. But very cool to, you know, cool fan event here that we are lucky to now be a part of. And
Have
so,
you ever listened to that podcast?
I have not actually. I need to.
Me neither. I should.
We should. I was going to say we should. We should now that we're like, you know, kind of
maybe we should have a react podcast to the Jedi Talk podcast.
How will that work? Anyway, but yes, so we're just one of many podcasts though taking part in this special event though, and so if you found us through this event, thank you very much, and also make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and if you have a Star Wars podcast of your own that you did a special video of or episode of, make sure you let us know down below, and yeah, awesome stuff. But here on the Dingus Den, we decided we wanted to celebrate this by talking about this comic, Star Wars Visionaries, which this is a very unique read. I'm excited to get into this, but I knew that when I wanted to do something for Star Wars Podcast Day, I was like, okay, we have to figure out some like nice one and done comic read, and it seems like most of the Star Wars stuff is kind of connected in some way, and so this is just a nice pick. But you, Ian, were the person to suggest this, so why was this what you suggested?
I mean, specifically, as you said, we wanted something that we didn't have to read stuff beforehand. There wasn't like big stuff after, that we could just focus on with one thing. And so I remembered that that you had actually gotten this comic several years ago, but hadn't
Yeah.
read it, and I hadn't read it yet either. But I had wanted to, specifically because you know how much I love art. Like with comics,
Mhm.
it's art first, story second. Even though I love story, it's always about the art first for me. Whereas
Yeah.
for you, I think it's the other way.
Yeah, it is the other way for me. But also, what I do love about comics is anytime I do reread through one, it's kind of the other way around for me because I already know the story.
Mm,
Now, I don't always do that though, just because there's so much to read and I'm always wanting to get to the next new story. But anytime I do reread something, it is more of that mindset. I take my time with it. I find more when I
that's
reread.
that's interesting.
So,
Okay. Um, but yeah, so I love art, and this specific book was about uplifting the work of the concept artists that worked on episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and which actually was suggested slash pitched by J.W. Rinsler. That's his name, right? Who had written the making of books for the movies, um, and he also wrote the foreword for this book. But
yeah.
yeah, so it's just, it's self-contained stories from each individual one, so that we can just focus on each. And I thought that'd be a fun, fast idea.
Yeah, I agree. It's always interesting too to see where, this concept came from and then seeing how, some of these aspects are integrated later on and what we know now.
Yeah.
And so it's I'm excited to talk about this of seeing where like a bunch of these concepts maybe first came from all the way back from Revenge of the Sith era and we didn't realize it. And so, but I did read the forward, and the forward was really interesting, talking about how Lucas would meet with the concept art team every Friday and work with them and see what they do and realize like, oh, they make all this great art, but it just doesn't fit with what he wanted. Versus a lot of art also just kind of helped him form the great universe as we know it now. So it's really interesting to see these different point of views as we do go through this comic. Uh,
Especially because
mhm.
when artists, at least I assume, I do art myself, and I do this myself, even though I've never worked as a concept artist. But when you are working on something, it's very hard not to um think about what the story is with whatever you're creating.
Mm,
Like, say that George Lucas just said, "Oh, I need a spaceship, or um I need a planet surrounded by asteroids." When you're
yeah,
creating that, it's really easy for you to just be all like, okay, who built this ship? What's its use? Um, and on this planet, who lives on this planet? Why is it surrounded by an asteroid field? Did
right.
something destroy their moon? And it's like, so it's cool that they got to then take their concept art from that film and follow the stories that they thought of.
Hmm. This almost feels like half of it is, I mean, no, not quite literally half of it, but we do get a lot of just art in general that we get to see here. Like this piece right here specifically, like they just throw in art and like this isn't related with any of the stories, but it's still really cool to see. Like this was something that they did though.
Hmm.
And so we do get lots of cool art like
Oh,
that throughout.
I did not notice that Vader is crushing people beneath his boots.
Yeah, some sort of like cybernetic people looks like. But yeah, it's yeah, lots of awesome, cool, brutal artwork. Got a cool one of Grievous there.
Hmm.
Echoing the Kalish warlord. And so, but that brings us to our first story, though, which this is probably the one I'm not going to lie, the most excited to talk about. And part of it is too is it's just interesting to see, of all the stories, a lot of them feel like they could have actually happened. Especially like this did get published, I believe, back in 2005,
a month before the release of the film.
See, that I didn't know. That's cool. So, with that being said, it's like, as we know of Star Wars now, even with having watched that movie, you could look at a bunch of these or not a bunch of them. There's one or two that you could look at and be like, oh, that fits in the universe. Versus others are just wild kind of stuff. It reminds me a lot of Star Wars Visions in some ways, of how it's just like, take the Star Wars IP and do it. And I do feel like this comic is probably really where the idea of Visions really came from. But they were like, what if we let other cultures do Star Wars than just anybody? And so, but with that being said, though, it's just like Visions. There is like a story or two in this too that also feels like, hey, it could be actually part of Star Wars, and this is one of them. And it kind of has, in a way. Which, let's just get into it. So here we see, though, it does begin on Tatooine, third year of the Imperials. We see young Luke, and
I'm a little concerned about Luke's speech skills. Like, he's 3 years old, and he's just going blah, 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 blah. Like, 3-year-olds can talk. 3-year-olds use full words.
I did recognize that.
But, Luke, there's something to say about his evolution.
Yeah.
Social skills.
So anyway, Uncle Owen sees a figure coming, heading towards them, and I kind of recognized who it was right off the bat, just because of like, how we know of the return of this character.
Mm-hmm.
But you see these big, awesome robotic legs and this, red arms, and especially the way he speaks to you. I like that. I like the different red and black speech bubbles used with him.
Oh yeah.
It's a nice detail. I like when they do that with certain characters that's deserving of, and I would say this is one that is deserving of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get all this great stuff here, and we then also get the reveal of Ben Kenobi there, and next thing we know, it is indeed Darth Maul, and it's their like duel together. And this is like, the fact that this came out in 2005 is really important, because this version of Maul, we do know as a canon version. This is essentially what he was after the spider legs, when he came back in Clone Wars. And so it's interesting to see of like, oh, this was an idea that they had all the way back then. And like, I just kind of found it, like, it stood out to me, like, how much that design for something that's considered a concept book, that, like, it's really close to what we actually knew of Maul when he came back. And so,
I mean, they specifically referenced this design. I think it was Killian Plunkett that I read that designed him for the Clone Wars, and he specifically went back to that design. So yeah, it was very close.
Yeah, I like that he took that he did that, and we get the epic duel with Maul and Obi-Wan. And part of the reason I like this too is I'm one of those people that I understand the significance of the duel and the story reasoning behind the duel in Star Wars Rebels between Obi-Wan and Maul. But at the end of the day, I felt like it was an underwhelming duel, despite its deeper meaning that you could go into. And yes, I get why people do really like that duel. And no shade to anybody that does. But for me, I just personally found it disappointing. So to see this sort of older Ben Kenobi, although it is interesting. Here's speaking of that, another thing I thought of, though, was I remember people bringing up the point when the Obi-Wan show came out, which is pretty much like right in the middle, or right around the middle of between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, how like they're like, well, he looks kind of a lot just like how he did in like Revenge of the Sith, and like, fast forward, time, and he's now all gray, gray hair and a beard, right? Versus here, it's 3 years after, and he has all the gray beard already and hair already.
It's that Tatooine area.
That Tatooine hair. But I did like seeing this big duel though, and seeing where this idea of Maul back was just so cool, because like I love what Maul became when he was allowed to evolve as a character in Clone Wars, and so I just thought it's really cool to see this whole this whole bit here, and also seeing Uncle Owen. This is kind of brutal. Uncle Owen there getting the killing blow on Maul, which is and also just like Uncle Owen, like we kind of always just think of him as like the caretaker, of Luke. We don't ever really get to see him do much, so I thought it was kind of interesting. Of like, oh, he does get a little, he does get his hands dirty, so I thought that was interesting. So, but I thought overall though that first story was just like a really cool one to begin with, especially with how much like I enjoy the character Maul, and of course very excited for the new Maul show. And anytime I write any of those Maul lines, I just hear Sam Witwer's version of Maul.
That's great. What I heard as well. Yeah,
he does such a great job of that voice of Maul, and so it's great stuff. Anything you want to bring up about this one?
Well, just jumping off of several things that you were saying. Well, first off, I have never actually been a fan of Maul being alive and being brought back. I mean, I've definitely warmed up to it. There's a lot of things I do like. I like that he wasn't just brought back as in the same way, meaning as a tool of the Emperor.
Sure.
And that it is shown here, actually. Like, he specifically says, well, Obi-Wan asks, does the Emperor know? And Maul says, there is no empire. There is no emperor, there is no empire, there is just you and me. Because that's all he is now, is this specific want for revenge. So I do really like that. But also with the fight thing that you were saying here, you brought up the Obi-Wan show, and I just wanted to ask you what you thought about the fight then between Vader and Obi-Wan at the end of that show, because like there was, before that show came out, there was a someone had done an edit of the fight from A New Hope, where they like added so much action to it, and like force abilities and all that stuff. Whereas when I then heard someone's comments after the fact about that video, and what that fight really meant in A New Hope, that it's, two people that are totally masters in their own right, and know each other so well that all they can really do is, a much slower fent block, strike, looking for an opening, but just very focused. And so learning that afterwards, I enjoy that fight in A New Hope so much better, and think that, yeah, this big giant fight is not necessary or needed.
Sure.
But what did you think about the Obi-Wan Vader fight? Not to get too far off track, but just with what you said here about wanting the big fight.
I remember liking it, but I also remember not being blown away by it. But I think part of that may have also just been, to me, not liking other aspects of the episode that may have tamper or bled over to that as well, you know?
But if it's something we hadn't gotten, would you have missed it?
You know,
Like,
that's a great question. I'm gonna go with no, but I also need to rewatch that show fully. Like that's something I've been wanting to rewatch fully for at least a few years now and just haven't.
I
So
know.
so yeah, I'm gonna say no to that, but the answer could change after I rewatch it. So
Okay. Well, yeah, because I was just thinking while I was reading the fight,
mhm,
um, about the same thing about the Rebels episode and
mhm,
how when I first watched it, I think I felt the same way as you.
mhm.
But afterwards, learning about that, there's the link to the original. Is it Kurosawa?
Curacao, maybe that
But the
sounds right.
link to the movies that Star Wars, as specifically the Jedi, are based off of. There's
Mhm.
a fight that was exactly the same.
Yeah,
Um, and also the way that it was their it was a replay of their battle from a Phantom
right.
Menace. Like Maul did the same strike
Mhm.
because he hadn't learned,
Right.
whereas Obi-Wan had learned
Yeah.
and knew how to deflect it
Yeah.
and then strike the killing blow.
Yeah.
Um, so I love that.
Yeah.
Uh, But
No, like I love the story reasons of that too. It's just for me when you first watch it, it's just like you get 20 minutes of build up and then they fight for 10 seconds, if even. And it's like,
yeah,
oh. And so it's just the cinematic of, you're wanting this epic duel. But I get that though, so
it's interesting that I think that is part of my favorite parts of the episode now, but overall I don't enjoy the episode because it is, yes, just 20 minutes of build
yeah.
up. Um Even though I enjoy the conclusion, I don't love the episode. So,
Funny how
but
things
we're
work
not
out.
talking about that episode.
No, we're not. But speaking of Maul, though, before we do move on, I want to share this specific like art of Maul, though. The original artwork behind him. At least I assume this was the original artwork behind him. Is what all these bits are in between. And
Mhm.
so, uh, it's quick. Like I said, like it's essentially the same, other than his tattoos being different. So, very cool.
I wanted to say one more thing though
Mhm.
um about Uncle Owen,
Oh,
um
sure.
because that moment right before he shoots him, Obi-Wan's having to make this choice. Like Maul's life isn't
Yeah,
easy.
you
He's
get
got
this.
he's got the gun to his head basically. Um
Mhm.
and he's seeing visions of all the pain that has been caused since Qui-Gon Jinn was killed. Because if Qui-Gon Jinn hadn't been killed, Qui-Gon would have been the one to train Anakin,
Right.
and everything could have been different.
Yeah.
So, from Obi-Wan's perspective, this is all Maul's fault. And so,
Yeah.
this is his chance for revenge, and it's taken away from him. We don't know, at least in the context here, we don't know whether he would have chosen to kill Maul in a
Mhm.
way that wasn't fully self-defense, in a way that
Yeah.
was voiced, in a way that was influenced by revenge, because that's what I
Mhm.
took from it.
Yeah.
His visions of this stuff.
Well, I
Um,
think it's part of what makes it great is you can see him struggling there of does he like the lightsaber for what would be an execution in this case,
yeah.
when while Jedi can kill, it is like you said, I always believe more in like a self-defense manner, right?
Mhm.
And so he knows that if he was to do that, it's not the Jedi way,
And
which is why he struggles.
especially it's about intent,
Yeah.
because again, he's having these thoughts
Yeah.
as he's holding the lightsaber to his head. And so, yeah, it's like if he killed him, with this anger and his own
Mhm.
thirst for revenge in his heart,
Yeah.
what path would that set him on? Did Owen just save him?
Probably, like, honestly, like, I would think so in that case. And it's very, like I said, like, this is one of those things why I really like that story is it, like, fits really well, like, doesn't really contradict anything in the world, at least for the time being, right? Like, for a time before Maul came back
Except
and
for one thing.
okay. Luke not being able to speak? Okay, yeah, sure. No,
No, no.
go on.
Maul said he found a corpse on Mustafar. And we see Vader, which, by the way, this was released a month before
Didn't think
the
about that.
movie. It
Yeah,
spoils the movie in a way. It uses specifically um Anakin, his where he's screaming the line "I hate you."
yeah,
It's that image.
yeah,
And it's
true.
also the image of seeing him, on Mustafar,
Right.
laying there prone as there's a shuttle
Yeah,
in the sky. So this seems to slightly change it that
sure,
he
right.
he either died there or Maul maybe it's more Maul decided he was a corpse, that he was alive, but he's like, no, he's dead anyway. He's just a
Sure.
hut.
Yeah, I forgot about that little detail, but yeah. Other than
And
that, though,
seeing
it's
Padme here as well.
yeah,
That's directly from the movie.
yeah,
So it's a little preview.
yeah. Little preview. It was a different time then too, with when all the tie-in stuff for that movie came out, and I believe it was also Revenge of the Sith too that I remember people telling me as well of how that was a movie that got leaked as well, like a early before
Really.
CG version that got completely leaked that people were able to watch as well. So, yeah, interesting stuff.
Well, the
Anyway,
last thing I wanted to
oh,
mention
God.
was I thought the little ending with Owen, um, even though Obi-Wan had saved Luke and
Oh,
them, he still like tells him to go away. And I didn't know if this was more probably at this time it was, based off of based off of what we see in A New Hope and how Owen's dismissive of
sure.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
Um, but I'm wondering if with the Obi-Wan show, with how the characters interacted in that show, if the writers read this and saw that kind of interaction between them, because it's very similar. And so I'm wondering if those writers also drew from this to pull kind of kernels of that relationship
I think
forward.
that'd be cool, like, if they did, like, I find that neat, like, if that is what they got to do or did, so, yeah. So, yeah, like, that first story was just very juicy, but, there's several other stories too that I wanna, all these others, we probably won't be spending as much time on other than maybe the last one, but there's stuff to also talk about with the others, such as this one, and I always wanted to know how you felt about the art of this one here, the artist of Naboo.
This was one of my
Mhm.
um favorite ones. I think a lot of it is um because I believe Naboo is really kind of based off of it's either Italian or actually no, I think it's more Spanish architecture, especially since they did go and film in Spain during Attack of the
Sure.
Clones. Um, and so like this is like kind of based off of like a classic, at least I think it is based off of a classic Spanish art style.
Sure.
Um, I loved the art with this one. Um, I
Yeah,
felt
that
the
Spanish architecture
story was lacking.
is a very basic sort of, like, just quick, sort of story, but I could see that.
It definitely feels like because also I don't really understand what the format of this book specifically was. If the edict, dictation, direction, if the direction was to say, okay, artists, take concept art that you made for this film, Revenge of the Sith specifically,
Mm-hmm.
and move forward with your own story with that.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's what this one seems like. It just seems like a
Yeah.
bunch of concept art and then a minimalistic story pasted on.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the previous one seemed much more like he had the concept art of Maul and he's like, okay, what can I do with that story? Like,
Yeah.
because also some later ones don't seem to have any direct link to Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
And as I was reading afterwards, they were given freedom to explore any aspect of the Star Wars universe that they wanted. So I didn't know if that then meant, okay, so maybe they don't have to be basing it off of the Revenge of the Sith work, but we just want to uphold these specific artists that worked on this movie, and they could do whatever they want. So I think maybe it's a
Sure.
mix.
Yeah, maybe. I think so. Like, I do think at the end of the day, it was just like kind of do whatever you want. And uh I don't it also I think brings up a point of question too of how much these artists really knew of the overall story, because some of them slide right in, some of them don't. Maybe the ones that even maybe everyone knew and they were just like, let me do it my own way because I have the option to, versus others being like, I want to respect the world more. Not saying that the others wanted to disrespect the world, but like try to make a more faithful story that could slide in, you know? So
Leland Chi, who um, I'm not sure of what his specific title was. From what I just found, it basically called him the archivist of the holocrons. But I think he was basically Pablo Hidalgo before Pablo Hidalgo. I mean, even though Pablo Hidalgo
mhm,
was around at the time, I think, he's
sure,
basically the guy that is um, what is canon, what is not pertaining to
sure.
what officially um, Lucasfilm says. Um, but he commented on each one about the um, canonicity of each one, and the majority of them it was kind of like ambiguous, um,
Sure.
saying whether that they could fit. Some of them is like, oh yeah, this could totally be canon, and some of them, one of them later, it was like it's anyone's guess. Um, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Yeah, let's try to like I said, there's a lot of shorter ones here, and so I kind of want to not necessarily speed through them, but like, kind of get through a bunch of them. Like, I mean, the main thing with this one is the art, which I've been showing off. But there is a big point I think to talk about this one before we do move away from this one, and that is how this person is able to see these force visions, which made me think of like when was the first case that we actually got to see force visions?
Um, well, we know that Anakin was having visions in Attack of the Clones.
Okay,
If you're going chronologically,
sure.
I think if you're, because I don't think there were any in Phantom Menace. But if you're going by release date,
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure the first visions are in Empire Strikes Back with Luke.
Oh yeah. But anyway, I found it interesting though of how we get this random force sensitive artist able to see something that's important to the universe. He doesn't necessarily know how it's important, but you know, I thought it was an interesting idea though, to have that, because I've always liked the idea of just random people being force sensitive.
Do you think that's Anakin's eye, um, as he's burning on
Is he's
Mustafar?
burning? Oh, I don't know. It's a good question.
Kind of looks like it.
I could see that. Um, maybe it is. I think that's very possible.
I would also say this is another spoiler
Yeah.
because if you are watching these movies, like say you're watching them chronologically
Yeah.
and um not by release,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't know about Luke and Leia and everything. You don't know that she's having twins until the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Did they outright? Oh no, they did say it's Padme. Yeah, this is true. And the story literally does end here with like him rescuing and sacrificing himself for so Padme survives.
He didn't sacrifice himself. I thought that's what happened for a second, but it's like no, he just put himself at risk. But don't worry, he got better so that he
But no,
could
it does say he
more
recovered. You're
paintings
right.
about Alderaan.
Yeah.
So
In the moment, he sacrificed himself.
yeah,
He's left face first in the puddle.
yeah.
So.
Oh, I see. I didn't notice this till now. In the puddle,
Yeah.
we see Padme's ship.
Yeah, one of the Naboo craft. I don't remember
That's
what it's
cool.
called. Yeah, it's a nice like a lot of the stories I think were kind of more like that, of where it's just kind of like fun little stuff. Some are kind of just kind of wacky. Speaking of ones that are wacky,
Mm.
I want to
Oh my
know.
god,
I want.
this is the one that was next. Oh my god.
So I gotta say, so first, all right, I was excited to see what Tambor have his own thing, because
I like
I
him.
don't.
He's an interesting character.
Yeah, he's one of the. I remember when I first kind of like really started getting into Star Wars more and like paying attention to more of the universe and more the background characters, that when I watched Revenge of the Sith, Wat Tambor of all those separatist people was the one that stood out to me, of just being like, oh, he looks cool. I want more of him. And you really don't get more of him because he kind of just dies. And so, so
You have to wait for the Clone Wars.
Yeah, so with him having his own story though, I thought was a cool concept. Now, I don't know exactly fully what happened here. This is like somebody was like on something when they made this story. I don't remember who made this story, but it's
you keep talking and I'll look.
But this story though, it's like we get to see more of his people, which is interesting, and he's like having this eye patch. Here he's able to see this of like stuff about Anakin there. Yeah, it's a lot of just interesting, and I will say though, I do like how unique the artwork is in this one. But the story was a bit bizarre, as he does just go through and he sees like all these like finds, and there's all these weird like, I guess those are weird people, weird squiggly people. I don't know.
Like
It's
from The Little Mermaid, like the scene in Ursula's lair.
maybe it's a bit bizarre. It's interesting.
His name is Mike Murnane.
Well, Mike Murnane,
he loves Edward Gorey, Dr. Seuss, Mobius books, and David Lynch films. So this makes
a lot. This makes a lot of sense now. But yeah, like just like it's the story of this is just bizarre, and the fact that it just goes around a character that really doesn't get to do much in the grand scheme of things, and he fights against that. That's all you could describe it. It's just that. And he's also randomly like naked now or something. I don't know. Like this is bizarre.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, and he like loses his face mask and stuff, so we get to see what he looks like beneath.
Yeah. So all those, and it's like, what even is he doing here? it would be interesting to hear more from Mike of what exactly he was doing with the story, as it is just absolutely bizarre, though.
Yeah.
But first impressions, just like, what the heck?
I definitely would love a deep dive on this, either with the author, and maybe there is something, since this was so long ago, maybe it has been talked about.
Yeah,
But also a deep dive from like analysts who like really can
delve
like dig
into it.
into like poetry and imagery and
Sure.
stuff. I would love that, because like the
Yeah,
imagery, yeah, is fascinating.
it is great.
And
Like this end page
I
is
love
is
this
great.
idea of this council and like this creed that they have, and like this journey that he has to go on, and maybe it's a journey about completely laying bare your inner self and
Yeah.
extruding everything else. But it just, I can't really grasp onto anything to even be sure if that is any particular direction. So
Yeah, it's one of those things of where the idea is absolutely there. It's kind of just the execution of it all. You
yeah,
know?
the previous one with the Naboo thing seemed extremely minimalistic. It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, I'll just
Yeah.
paste this very thin story over
Yeah.
this. Whereas
Simple
this is
doesn't mean
like,
bad, you
yeah,
know?
where this is like so convoluted, like I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I agree, and that is kind of like what hurt it, other than, like I said, just kind of like a big fever dream as you were just reading the whole thing of like,
Hmm.
what is this?
Hmm.
So, but yeah, actually, next up is actually one of my favorites, actually.
Mm.
Curious of what you think about this one, though. A pure art. I love some of these comic stories, just pure art that tells its own story.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
no words.
this, yeah, and it's really cool. Like this is the only words. Is it saying synthesis and then the
Arabish.
thank you. I was like, I should know this. An Arabish there. But like you see all this just really cool art with this one. Like and the story of obviously it's Palpatine there, messing with a Sith artifact and uh weird ritual with this eel creature and him cutting his like even though we've never seen Palpatine do something like that with his hand, that's very much a Palpatine thing that he would do. And
Hmm.
maybe the eel thing's questionable, but I could see Palpatine also do that. So,
Well, this eel thing,
uh-huh.
this is the link I was talking about with Heir to the Empire. To me, that looks like an Izumari.
Oh! As I was saying eel things in Star Wars, I was like, I feel like I've seen this somewhere before. And that explains
Doesn't
where
it look like that? I mean, I don't know
it,
exactly how it would work, because they're supposed to like deflect the force, but
well, they're meant to be a bit bigger. I think they're more salamander-like, if I remember right.
they grow. There is a much bigger one at the end of the story.
Okay, I'd have to get out my. I have an Heir to the Empire figure that has one of them with it. That I think it came with one. I could be completely wrong. Anyway,
This is the small version.
this is the small version, maybe, but yeah, this
A little gross.
it just gives you the sense of that it's disturbing, and it's did a good job with that as well. I think is part of the point because it goes into, as it says, it's a synthesis instead of a thesis. It's a synthesis. So anyway. You go through it and, seeing Palpatine do his whatever he's trying to do here with the Force. And like this is just fantastic art here. I love this page right here. One of my favorite pages of the entire book is this right
Mhm.
here. And so it's just amazing and seeing him like this cool visual of him like of him actually overruling Coruscant there.
Not just Coruscant, but like the entire galaxy,
Yeah,
or
true.
not just galaxy,
But
universe.
but there is the focus on Coruscant there though, which stood
Yeah.
out to me first, and then yeah, but the more you look at it, it's just like, holy cow, this is really cool. And seeing all the other Sith behind him of being like the the Force goes to aid him, much like in the way of like Rise of Skywalker, when it's like Rey's all the Jedi, here's Palpatine's all the Sith here that are with him there. And so it's such a cool piece of artwork here that I truly do love. Like I said, it's one of my favorite pages of artwork of this entire thing. Could be a contender for a favorite. And I don't ever thought about what would be my favorite, but this is absolutely up there.
Of the entire favorite piece of art from the entire book?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if anything knocks it down. But of these first four, it's my favorite. So we go here, and here's what also stood out to me too, was of seeing this whole part with Padme and her suffering, and then also saying this is how Yoda's demise kind of happened as well. Like the alternate take of the end of Revenge of the Sith, and like there's that big theory with Revenge of the Sith, which I fully 100% believe, is that how Padme died was of Palpatine taking her life force and feeding it to Anakin, and that's how he survived.
I love that idea.
Yeah, I think it perfectly fits, and anytime I rewatch that movie, it's just like, that's how I read those scenes and how they're cut, like, every time, and so, but this comic kind of showing that with this page in particular is like, that's what I got from it. And I'm
like
just
how
like,
much of an
cool.
influence he can have.
Yeah.
So far reaching. Yeah.
And you could even reach to this too, of obviously these artists knew what was happening in the movies, or at least a lot of the main ideas. Maybe they didn't know
multiple
the exact
different drafts.
Yeah. And so like this shows too of like, this is very clearly an idea that they had for that. Like, it's so much of a theory that I almost don't even want to call it a theory, because I feel like it's anything but a theory at this point, just because I think it kind of is what happens. At least that's how I feel, so.
Well, the writer, I did read some stuff of at least what I could find about some of the creation of these stories, and this writer in particular, what was their name? I'll find it later. This writer in particular, it seemed for them that they really wanted to focus on a Sith like ritual, but also that for them it was like, this is how Palpatine always looks.
Yeah.
And that the way we see him as a senator, looking younger and not deformed, is an illusion. But what requires to have that illusion is this thing that he goes through to consume and to be consumed, and then come out of it again, and like that's how he like it sustains his life, and like his youth and longevity. So I thought that was a really interesting idea.
I do love too how we do get to see a little bit of Anakin there, who to me, obviously, like, the character wasn't even a thought, but that looks a lot like Kylo Ren to me. I don't know if
it does.
And so anyway,
I do think that Kylo, specifically from The Force Awakens, I mean, after he takes the mask off, I think he does look a lot like Anakin from Revenge of the Sith. And I remember when I first saw that movie, I was just thinking, Anakin and Kylo, they're not evil. They're just sweaty. Because they're just like, they just have this look of like their long hair kind of matted to their face by all this sweat. And it's like, they're just sweaty. It's making them irritated.
That's funny. We get this big Jedi crystal, which is really cool. Really like that. You see, as you were talking about, the creature comes back and grows, which eats Palpatine. Worst mistake of its life.
Yeah,
And
the Zillow Beast.
yeah. And then we see, Palpatine with all the royal guards, and after he just steps out from it, and yeah, I really like this one. Uh, so
And yeah, there's a lot of imagery from these used in later things. Like you brought up Rise of Skywalker, and I think this really has a look of like at least in terms of atmosphere and mood, it has a lot of Exegol in it,
yeah,
like with that laboratory and just all these dark, creepy experiments. And there's also like the thing at the beginning, the little pyramid thing. It looks like a Sith holocron, which we see
yeah,
later in Rebels, and it also unfolds, kind of like how the pyramid in Rebels,
oh
um,
yeah,
in the season 2 finale
yeah.
on whatever that planet's called.
I don't remember, but yeah, I know
But
exactly what you're
but
talking
yeah,
about.
like the Sith homeworld, like it
Mhm.
it kind of unfolds like that
Yeah,
that pyramid.
yeah,
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that it's like, did they draw from this? And
yeah.
it's part of why I love Star Wars so much is that nothing ever goes to waste. Like
Uh,
like legitimately designs um designs from like the first films, like in the 70s, are still being pulled from
good
to
classic,
today, you
Ralph
know?
McQuarrie art, yeah, being used in
Yeah.
Mando and stuff like that, which is awesome.
Hmm.
So, love it. That's a very good point. I agree. Um, okay. Just to, move along as we still have a lot to cover. This story I found interesting, because, like, it's a story that absolutely works. As it kind of like pretty much just completely fits. But I found it interesting though that this would be considered a Revenge of the Sith, pulled from something from Revenge of the Sith,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
because it's very much like a Empire Strikes Back interlude.
Yeah. Which is why I think it was like, okay, do whatever you want and either use your work from the film as your basis for what
Mhm.
you want to do, or do something else, and we'll just what we're highlighting is your type of art style.
Yeah,
um
I can definitely see that. But essentially, it's just showing a soldier's perspective of the Battle of Hoth as we know it.
mhm.
And
And I do
how
like that idea,
yeah,
like
no, I do like
fitting like
these. Yeah,
fitting it into like that he's the one that said the Imperials have entered the base, the Imperials have entered the base, and then it goes
yeah. It's cool, and we get his whole inner monologue and all that, which is cool, and, seeing all the stages of the attack
Mhm.
too, where it just focuses on the battle itself and not all the other stuff that the movie kinda tells, getting a
Yeah.
more,
I
that
love
version
I
of
love
it.
that idea of
This is
parallel
brutal.
stories that you can think about.
Yes. Sorry, this part caught me by a complete surprise as I was like, I felt like this was just brutal for Star Wars, those top 2
Mm,
panels right there, where you literally see him take an icicle, and you even see a little bit of blood coming out from it. Like, that's like John Wick stuff right there in Star Wars. So,
mhm.
anyway,
I loved, as we were saying, like some of the stories just it felt like they're just pasting a story over their work,
mhm,
or the craziness
yeah,
of the Wat Tambor story. But this one like really had a lot of meaning in it. Um
yeah, sure,
about not like a soldier's life and about potentially losing yourself.
yeah,
And I really resonated with it reading it yesterday because I was literally just thinking like the previous day or something about that. I've personally gone through a lot of mental health struggles, um, and yet coming out of it on the other side, even though I still have all of that stuff with me, I've still maintained who I've always been, at heart, who I am as a person, and how I treat others, and stuff like that. And so I just really resonated with the story that is talking about, like, you have to do things or go through things that you might lose yourself and change yourself. And while I've been changed, I'm still myself, and I'm still okay with who I am. And it's kind of like at the end of this story as well, he's talking about, like, a lot of people at death, they think about all the things that they should have done differently, but I can look at death in the face and smile because I know that what I did was right. I really liked that.
Yeah, great final moment here, for sure, for that character, and having this reveal too that he was Mothma's son.
Yeah, my Mothma's son, but that's the part of the story I have a problem with.
Yeah,
because it's like the story, as you said, it's working so hard to, like, fit perfectly into the canon.
Yeah.
But he's, like, writing this letter to his mom as if she's not part of the rebellion, and it's like, well, I can't tell you where I am. I'm sorry, your mom's the leader of the rebellion?
Yeah, she'd know everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was also thinking about too from this new canon's perspective after Andor as well, being like this really kind of wouldn't work as well with what we know from that either. I feel like as well.
It is
But that's
possible.
a new canon thing. I feel like
it is possible that, because, like, this took place, like, this was written in 2004, it came out in 2005. While we knew that they would have known, because it was, like, part of the scripts and ended up being part of the cutting room floor, Mom Mothma was a senator.
Yeah.
But it's possible that she might not have been, like, from this person's mind, that she might not have been part of the rebellion. And maybe what got her to be part of the rebellion was that her son joined the rebellion and she lost her son, and she doesn't even know what happened to him. And so that pushed her to join. Because, like, when you watch the Return of the Jedi movie, it doesn't say, hey, this person's the leader of the rebellion. They've actually been the leader of the rebellion for a really long time, and they've been blah, 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 blah. So maybe that's the case.
Yeah.
But reading it now, it was just like, your mom's the leader of the rebellion.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Agree. All right. I have another question for you. What the heck do you think about this? This whole thing, I was like, what is this? The whole time. I was like, this looks cool, but, like, I understood nothing.
Do you know what the fourth precept is?
I don't think so.
The fourth precept of the Jedi Code is, there is no death, there is only the Force. Or it's just, there is no death, there is the Force.
Okay.
Which I didn't know either at first. I mean, I know that saying.
Sure.
But I read it after reading this. I think it's very abstract storytelling.
Yeah.
Love the artwork.
Yes.
I think it is. It's interesting because you can view it either as, I mean, you can view it anyway, but you can view it as like, there is this chaotic battle going on, and like, it's in this image that you have up here. In this image, maybe it's you see it's in this bubble. So maybe the idea is it's either contained to, like, you also kind of see like this galaxy within in the bubble. So maybe it's like specifically
Mhm.
about the battle going on in the Star Wars galaxy, between light and dark. And externally, there are all these gods watching.
Yeah. It's
Or it could be like a battle internally, like within everyone's individual self. Or it's like, there is this battle, and these are all the creatures and things around that are like wrapped up in the battle. I don't know. See, we don't know.
well, yeah, because you're gaining all these weird just things. Like, there's this battle going on, and we're seeing all these worlds as
Yeah, we see
really.
Mustafar and Mon Calamari and Coruscant.
Yeah, exactly. All this stuff where like, what in the world? Like, I was reading this and I was like, this is the coolest ever stuff artwork I've seen, but I've never like, I had no idea what's going on.
Hmm.
So it's
I
cool.
think it's better though than the Wat Tambor thing, because
Yeah,
this is like the type of concept art that elicits story. Like, you like grab onto this and you're like, oh, what's the story behind this? And you want to figure it out and you want to create something. Like, this could totally move you forward with that. Whereas the Wat Tambor thing, it's like you can do that, but first you have to get over the what before you can move on to that logical thinking process.
sure. I think with this one being more abstract, it helped it more,
Hmm.
and yeah.
And no dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, Going into that whole like this is just crazy abstract stuff of I
Yeah.
don't
What
even
is that?
know. Yeah, what is
What
this
is that?
exactly? It's so cool, but I don't know what this is. But it's also just like really cool. The artwork's great in this. Like this is an absolutely fantastic art here that we're
Hmm.
seeing here throughout this whole story, and we then see it end and everything blows up and it's like what the heck, and then we can see at the end what obviously be this whole midichlorian idea. So like it's
Yeah,
I
I
don't
didn't
know.
realize first.
Yeah, no, I looked at that and I'm like, oh, this has something to do with midichlorians being born or the battles in the midichlorians. I don't know. It's something going on.
A battle between the light and dark at a macro level and a micro level.
If I remember right, like this was something that Lucas wanted to do somewhat like crazy with his sequels at one point was something that he considered. Or maybe he was going to do, I don't know. Like I don't know if we ever know what Lucas was really going to do,
Mhm.
but so all right. All right. Um all right, let's go on. We got next story. Oh, well there's this art. Oh, that's cool there. Um oh, this one stood out to me as well.
Stood
Uh
out in a good way.
well because this is I could be wrong, but I think the first appearance of the character Dirge. Or okay, Dirge appeared also in the Travosky Clone Wars. So maybe that actually came out first actually. But it's the same character that's in this.
Oh,
It's the
which
name.
one's Dirge? Because that name rings a bell, but which one are they?
Travosky's Clone Wars, Travosky. Hold on, I can pull it up for you here really quick. But Dirge is he's like a big character in that, and he's really only appeared in that other than they canonized him a couple of years ago in the
But
comics.
which one is he in this?
Oh, I think the big guy. That's the focus here. They
Okay.
the Dirge in this comic isn't really what Dirge actually is. What Dirge actually is this whole interesting character. If you remember him at all from the original Clone Wars cartoon.
I didn't finish watching it.
Okay, well, he's a big separatist war machine.
Okay.
Or
So maybe
enhanced
this is
person.
like kind of saying like this
Another
is how he came to be.
maybe it's
Was
another
built
kind
by
of
this scientist guy.
very much like another Grievous-esque kind of character, but more of instead of being something more Jin, Jedi Sith like, but more soldier like. That's more, souped up.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, it stood out to me though that this was about Dirge, and we
There's a
do get some,
mythosaur.
yeah, and dealing with this whole mythosaur idea and Mandalorians involved in it and all these cybernetic people. It was interesting. Uh, it kind of, I mean, I liked it more than a Wat Tambor story, but I kind of felt in a kind of a similar fashion of like it was cool ideas, but it didn't. The execution wasn't fully there for me either.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Yeah,
Like the art
is
style is really muddled, and oftentimes I couldn't really even tell what was happening.
that is fair. I did find myself struggling a little bit to go through it as well. So it was one of those like it was cool, and I get the Mando aspect, the Mandalorian aspect is important in this, but then they also kind of felt like kind of out of nowhere to me halfway through this. Did you feel that way?
I was just trying to get through this one.
Fair. This is just like it was certainly one, you know?
The scientist though gave me vibes of vibes. Gave me vibes of the blue scientist from the first season of the Clone Wars, the guy that creates the blue shadow virus. I don't know if you remember that, but he was like this way over the top kind of crazy scientist type guy. And so this guy felt the exact same, but he's just not blue.
Yeah. I could see that. But yeah, you know what? For time's sake, since neither of us were really into them, we'll just go through that. I didn't go on. I didn't realize these counted as a story because I was
I
like,
didn't either till afterward.
yeah, and I was like, okay, we get weird, and got these apparently, which I kind of just looked at these and I was like, whatever, okay. um, but this story I found interesting though, with the Grievous and Separatists attacking
Mhm.
Kashyyyk. I thought was really interesting because uh, I first my thought process was I looked at this first page, I was like, oh, this is another story that's gonna easily whoop right into canon. And then I go to the second page, I'm like, oh, this isn't like Kashyyyk as we know it at all.
It's not?
Because because they're not like, well, okay, yeah, there's tree platforms, but look, their main base is at the roots of the trees. They're
I
all
mean,
always built up into the tree, and like it's a
I
different take on
mean,
Kashyyyk. Maybe they could have gone this route, but obviously what I got from it was this wasn't the vibe of Kashyyyk that Lucas wanted.
hmm. Okay.
So so as
I
we
mean,
go,
have you played the original Battlefront games? Because you go to Kashyyyk and um there are things on the ground.
there's a ground thing.
There's
Well,
settlements and stuff on the ground.
not the same kind of way. I don't. Yeah, okay. I get what
It's
you're
fine.
saying, though. Fair enough.
I still think it fully fits. And
Yeah.
I also like this is kind of could easily be like how they got involved in the war.
Yeah.
But
I
I
can see that.
also thought that this person protecting the prince, they never named them, but I think maybe that's Chewbacca,
Oh
like a
yeah.
younger Chewbacca, because he's got the
There's yeah
belt thing
the belt
thing
thing.
around him. And so I'm like, maybe that's like a little origin story for Chewbacca, but they didn't want to commit to saying that was him. Because
Sure.
I thought that's where they were going, but they never said their name.
Yeah. I can see that.
But that's my headcanon.
I can see that. I can see that for sure as we're going through this, and um, all this action happening. We can just see the. I don't know what those lizard creatures are. Those are kind of cool though.
I liked them a lot.
Yeah.
It would be cool to see something like that in Star Wars.
Yeah. But no, now that you're bringing up this Chewbacca thing, I wasn't thinking about it, but I absolutely see that though, and you can see this is where part of his rage comes from. He fighting these, uh, a lot like Imperial probe droids in this case,
Just bigger.
but bigger, and yeah, going against them and this pure rage. I did like seeing the pure like Wookiee rage at this point though. That was cool. And so and realizing, oh no, the prince fell, and yeah, I could definitely see this being the origin of their war, and everything there, and them being like, yeah, we'll come stand and fight, and the separatists are ready for their whole on invasion and everything, and so yeah, that was a it was a solid story. Like it wasn't my favorite of these, but like it wasn't one of the ones kind of like last one where I was like I didn't care for it too much overall. Like it was a middle of the road one. Overall, I would say I like it more than I didn't, but you know, uh, yeah, simple Kashyyyk story. But yeah, other than I think it's the depiction of Kashyyyk, which just didn't fully click with me. I would agree though that the story itself could definitely fit in. So, um, okay, I found we got a bunch of like essentially concept art of different places here, which is
Yeah,
cool.
there's no
Yeah,
story outside each
right.
individual piece and what it means.
But I thought a lot of these pieces were really cool though, so I at least want to just go through and highlight all these different pieces that are cool though. This one which is what is used for the cover.
Battle of Megiddo.
Yeah, which like it's interesting because it's like Megiddo was never really like featured much in Revenge of the Sith. Like it was there, but like it wasn't a highlight per se. Um, but like seeing all these great things of the this threw me off at first because I look at the picture first and then I read what it is because the picture obviously stands out so much more than the description, right?
Oh, I didn't even read the descriptions on the side.
Because
Okay.
this one, I looked at this first and I'm like, I knew it wasn't Coruscant, but I'm like, this isn't Coruscant, so what is it? And then I look and see Alderaan, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Okay, I can see that.
Alderaan's gorgeous, and
Yeah.
there's a Millennium Falcon there.
Yes, I did notice Millennium Falcon there, and then I think some of these others we see more Millennium Falcons as well. But
I think that's also one of the Nubian starcraft that
right
that
behind
Padme
it,
had right next to it.
yeah, I think so. I think that right here kind of looks like a Taintive ship, Taintive E, like from the beginning of A New Hope.
There's a medical frigate over there.
Yeah, good bit of Easter eggs here. So
this one, especially after I was not this one specifically, but after I was reading about this stuff after finishing the comic, it reads to me as like snapshots of the galaxy, like like
oh yeah,
someone for National Geographic or Time magazine goes out and just takes pictures of history,
yeah,
of history
yeah.
happening right now, and so
I love that.
that's how these read to me, that it's
I love
like
that.
specifically a journalist within the Star Wars world going around and going.
I love that. I felt like this one they took inspiration for in Rebels where they you remember when we meet Rex and I don't remember who's with Rex.
Wolf.
Thank you.
And his name starts with a G.
Yeah. Anyway, Rex and Co. They they were on top of a AT-AT if I remember right, and
Yep.
thinking that
The
they're
modified. Well, no,
yeah.
actually, no. shoot, it wasn't an AT-AT. It was the Clone Wars version of the AT-AT, the
Right.
Republic.
Okay.
The
Anyway,
thing that had
that
like the long
yeah.
nose.
Yeah, but you're right. It's been so long since I've seen that. But point is though, is I looked at this and my mind immediately went to that and made me think maybe this was their main source of inspiration for them living on that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. Um, let's see here, green Coruscant. See, I think this being a sector of Coruscant is a very interesting idea.
Mm.
Something that's not completely city-like. Maybe that I mean, still city-like, but
I feel
greenery.
like they would have to have like large areas of platforms that were just plant life to be able to, sustain the
Uh-huh.
atmosphere. Unless it was, it's possible it's become just a completely synthetic atmosphere. Like everything is done
Yeah.
synthetically. But I
Oh,
like this
I
idea.
think so. Yeah, it is a cool idea, regardless of if you think it fits or not with what Coruscant overall is. I see both sides of like kind of but for sure. Um, the reclaimed wreck here, that's cool. A lot
It's
like
like the Force Awakens.
Force Awakens, but in a forest mushroom planet. Mushroom, like there's a bunch of shrooms there.
I don't think those are mushrooms. I think they are houses and
Are
buildings.
they?
Yeah.
Maybe they are. Now that I'm going closer inspection. First glance, they look like shrooms.
Giant mushrooms.
They
Yeah. Let's go with that.
Tell us what you think. This is cool. Rancor bad pet. It's so funny. It's
Yeah.
just called bad pet. Rancor messing up a TIE fighter, and you're all like, "What the heck is that Vader down there?"
Yes.
Notice that. So it shows you how quickly I kind of just like looking through these earlier. But yeah, that's cool. And then Bridge World Lost. This is also cool. Kind of like is it the Ring of Kafrine? Is that what I'm thinking of? That this is kind of like. So
From
yeah,
the
that's
Mandalorian.
yeah. Wait, maybe. Or is that? Or also the place in Rogue One where Andor is first introduced. What is that?
Oh, yeah.
Those will get my names mixed up. Anyway, point is, cool stuff. That like you can kind of see it from different places like that. Say
Mhm.
cake. Good callback to the Mandalorian season 3 though, or was it season 2 or Book of Boba
It
Fett? Where you
was
saw that?
it
It's
was
Book of
Book of
Boba
Boba
Fett.
Fett. But this one makes me think of the season 6 opener from the Clone Wars, that had it was just this ring around this planet, and that's what they were fighting on.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
so I think that's probably they went back to this design for that.
that's cool. I didn't think about that. Nice callback. Jedi Museum. This is cool. I immediately saw the lizard creature and I thought, oh, that's what Kenobi rode on.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Hunting Overlook with Kashyyyk there. That's pretty cool. Really cool looking.
That looks like the
And
Kashyyyk
there's
of your dreams.
yeah, and then having the Millennium Falcon there. That's cool. Let's see, Utapau. This I found was interesting. Of like, this could have just been a scene that they completely planned for, and they
Yeah.
took a snapshot, and then just didn't happen. Because Utapau's surrender, I think, could have been. I think that could have been a great story point if they like wrote it out somewhere. And like, I get it with the pacing. Like, that was a good reveal in the movie
Yeah,
of
that
like,
to say he's here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, of being like, oh crap, okay. But to see the story of that surrender, I think would have been cool. And like in another medium, whether it's a short story, novel, one shot comic, whatever it is, um, just seeing this picture made me realize there was absolutely a story to be told there that could have been cool to see.
Hmm.
But yeah, I really like this one. And then we get our final story, The Eyes of Revolution by Warren J. Fu. Which this was a interesting story. It made me realize this was I'm not going to say exactly what I've been wanting from a General Grievous story, but a lot of what I would want from a General Grievous story. As we do get to see,
And we got to remember that this came out a month before the movie, so
yeah,
this is kind of, in a way, this could be considered just a little prequel to the movie,
yeah.
and that this is his origin to like build up his character and excitement for seeing that character in the film.
Well, there's also Grievous and Travosky's Clone Wars, and I don't remember when that came out though either. Is that very well could have been
You're
his
right.
first
Wasn't that
appearance.
2003?
Maybe.
Okay.
You know, that sounds right. Because I'm pretty sure it did come out before Revenge of the Sith, but still a prequel to what his character is, and we've never gotten like even in canon, like the events of what's happened to him are canon, but like exactly what happened, that actual specific story is never like canon. Like we haven't seen that anywhere, and I feel like that's kind of untapped potential, and that's what we see here is a take on what that could have been like.
This
I
is
was
another one that like could fully fit into the canon.
So this isn't the story of him being a Kaleesh warlord as we see at the very beginning, as we can see a little bit of his culture there, and he leaves, as it is then instead the story of how he became General Grievous, as his ship got sabotaged, and we learn that was essentially a big Sith scheme set in place by Palpatine there, as we can see, to, you know, turn this selected chosen warlord that they were spying on into their essentially ultimate war machine, as we now know of as General Grievous. And so, very cool to see, and getting to see another, what are those people called? But seeing this scientist dude, the people that's like from the banking clan that work there.
Oh yeah, their name starts with an M. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I don't remember what they're called
though.
either. But yeah, seeing those people and him being very menacing, like just look at that panel of mouth there. That's just menacing.
It was
So,
very Joker-like.
oh yeah, I could see that. Yeah. and you know, doing all these experiments, and he's like, I'd rather die, but then he's like, okay, I can redeem myself, as he's being you know, uh being told otherwise, manipulated, that's the word I was looking for.
Mhm.
We then get the whole Count Dooku tie-in with all this and the Geonosia later, and
And Cyphidius.
yeah, tying like right into like episode 2 there, which is cool. Or at least where they
Yeah.
were in episode 2.
Yeah,
But
I love that. Not only was this like set up for General Grievous's character, but it's also kind of tying up some loose ends from the Attack of the Clones that was never really tied up. I mean, they attempted it later in the Clone Wars. I don't know if it was ever. I don't know if I even consider that a full tie up, but
yeah.
definitely here it was like attempting that.
Yeah, like cool to actually see this whole Cypher idea, right? That's been this big
And
mystery of what
that they
happened to him.
use his blood as the transfusion
Yeah.
for Grievous.
That is a really cool idea though.
So
Like,
in a way, actually, I've just now thought about this, because like we know that Dooku trains Grievous.
mhm.
That is canon, as I think.
Yeah, I think so,
And
yeah.
so he specifically trains him to be like a Jedi killer, and he like collects the lightsabers and stuff. But what if he specifically used Sifo-Dyas as um the transfusion, because like Sifo-Dyas would have like all the midi-chlorians in his
I think
blood,
so,
and so
probably.
it's like infusing him with the blood of a Jedi. It doesn't like give him force abilities, but maybe it like heightens his senses and stuff and
Mhm.
allows him to be a formidable opponent.
Sure. I could definitely see that.
Headcanon now.
Headcanon now,
Although it
it's
can't fully be headcanon because Cypher was alive, but
quite, yeah.
but maybe a different Jedi.
Yeah, for sure. And then being able to see a bit of I really like this first panel up there too, just Grievous sitting there and all the all those guards, his special guards there, and him being given a lightsaber, and he's now kind of like rebelling against them all. You know, it's to me, it's interesting because as we know of Grievous now, do we consider this as part of his like in his character that he'd do something like this? Because
Oh yeah.
as I'm saying this though, well, the reason I say that though is because this seems like something very Sith-like to where he'd get mad like this and let his feelings out like this. But I don't feel like we've ever really known Grievous to be somebody that uses his feelings in that way like a Sith normally would, because he's meant to be more of a war machine and not a Sith per se.
We see him in the Clone Wars, we see him just like smashing a droid for getting something wrong or making him mad or just being in his way.
Sure, but this is just kind of like just a, I don't want to say random outburst, but like,
Well, this wasn't random. This was specifically because Dooku had said,
sure,
basically called him a droid.
sure, okay, fair
And
enough.
you know, you're now just, as you just said, a war machine. Like you are
Yeah,
now just one of our machines. And so
sure.
he is very a rebellious character throughout all that I've seen.
That is that's a fair point. I was just when you first look at this scene and you see this pure rage, it makes me think of the rage of a Sith when I feel like Grievous isn't necessarily a Sith, which is what made me first think of that. But you brought up absolutely valid points that I didn't think about.
He's Sith light.
Sith light, yeah.
He's
Me.
diet Sith.
He's diet Sith. Yeah. But yeah, I love that though, of what as you were saying there, the structure of everything. He's like, I am not a droid. So cool
And
stuff.
then
I am General Grievous. I love this last panel here. This is,
yeah.
you know what? Maybe it's a tie between that big Palpatine panel page I was talking about earlier and this one. I think these two are my two favorites. It's kind of like they're both high up there for just like neck and neck for different reasons, and so they're awesome. But yeah, this is an awesome page to end on, and then that's the end. Is I mean, we got everybody's biographies and you know, back of the book, but that's a wrap on Star Wars Visionaries. Did you have anything about this story specifically you want to talk about, though?
Are you gonna ask about favorites?
Sure, we could yeah, we go with quick favorites
Of all of them?
of all of them.
Okay. You want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. My favorite was this story.
Okay.
I just thought maybe it was because it was the last one, so it left that much of an impression. But I felt like, you know, it was very it was a cohesive and well put together story that could perfectly fit into the Star Wars universe. Thought it was a great introduction to his character. I thought it was great to see, as we spoke about, the wrapping up of some loose threads from the Attack of the Clones with Cypher. I thought, you know, including, you know, we get to see Count Dooku, we get to see the Emperor, we get to see the people from the Banking Clan, we get to see the awesome guy from Geonosis. I can't remember his name. Poggle the Lesser, that guy. I always really liked him. And also the art. I thought the art was my favorite for this one as well because it had enough realism that it wasn't cartoony, like some of the ones before, but it also was very painterly. So it didn't have any like black line art, you know, like harsh line art or anything. It was very soft edges, which I really enjoy that style. So yeah, from an artistic standpoint, from a story standpoint, and yes, I agree. This last page is probably my favorite page. It's very impactful, and just ends it on such a high note, and I just loved the entire thing. So that's my favorite.
Yeah, I This is definitely one of my favorites. I think, well, 2 and 3, like, if I was to kind of make a quick top 3. I only asked for favorites, but I was thinking of, like, what would be my favorite or, like, favorite ones, and, like, this is either my second or third with synthesis. Um, and then my favorite one would be the first one that we talked about with the mall, just because I really liked how that fit in and giving an alternate version of what I personally more wanted from Rebels.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I just really loved that first story with Maul, and that really resonated with me, and beginning really, like, really strong right out of the gate for me. And so,
I
yeah.
like that we chose literal bookends.
Yeah.
You choose the first, I choose the last.
Yeah, I do think, though, I will say, though, I think it both began really strong and ended really strong, and I do like that.
Probably why they did it that way.
I think so, is they knew to begin strong and to end strong, so.
And put some of the weird ones in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. That's there's an art to putting together anthologies. And so, yeah, absolutely. It was a cool mix of stories overall, though, and a unique experience to, read through all of them. And I told you this while I was reading through it, but I really enjoy reading, like, a couple of these anthology stories at a time. And for Visions seasons 2 and 3, I found that I enjoyed those seasons more, not by binging it like I did the first season, but watching 2, 3 episodes, take a break, watch another 2, 3 episodes, take a break, then the other 2, 3 episodes. And so, like, I just
Be able to
enjoy.
process some and not
Yeah,
just
yeah.
have it all
Yeah.
blur
So
together.
that's what I was able to do with almost all of these. That I was able to read a couple at a time, let it process, read a couple at a time, let it process. So actually, it pretty much did turn into, because the last 4 weren't really, like, only 2 of them were stories and the other was just art. So, like, I essentially did get to do that with all of them, which is cool. So, uh, yeah, it's cool. If you're a fan of Star Wars Visions, uh, it would be worth checking this out for yourself. I mean, we obviously kind of just already talked about
Yeah,
what
we
the
spoiled the
thing.
entire thing for you.
We did.
So if you haven't read it already, well,
I was about to say, maybe I should begin with that, and I didn't think about it until just now. But it makes
put
me
a little
appreciate
disclaimer on the screen at the beginning.
if I remember to put that in. But yeah, cool stuff though. It's a cool, the concept of Star Wars thing, how artists can just freely take away with Star Wars. I just really enjoy seeing that stuff. And it was a cool read, and I'm glad that you suggested this and for us to talk about it. This went a bit longer than I usually do with my comic videos, but it's fine though. It was a big special episode too. At the end of the day, celebrate Star Wars Podcast Day, which, if you're taking part, make sure hit that like and subscribe button, and also to be one of many podcasts as part of Star Wars Podcast Day. So this is a fun way to celebrate. So, do you have any final words?
Final words.
Final. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and we'll see you next time here in the Dingus Den. Laters, everyone. Bye.